Welcome to episode 55 of our series on Duties of the Heart by Rabbi Bachya Ibn Pakuda, and we are up to chapter 5 in the Gate of Humility, and we've been describing various aspects of humility in the last few episodes, and in this one we are going to discuss the 7 methods of acquiring humility. So Rabbi Bahya continues, the methods of acquiring humility and the way this is made easier for a person consist in the following: that one's thoughts and imagination are kept focused on 7 points. Number 1, the root and origin of a human being is a drop of semen and blood. After these have become putrid and malodorous, he is nourished by impure blood as long as he remains in his mother's womb, after which he emerges weak and frail in body and limbs. He develops from one stage to the next until reaching full maturity. Then old age sets in and his days are done. A sage once said in this regard, I wonder how a creature that has passed twice through passageways for urine and blood can become proud and arrogant. Reflection on this and other aspects of the human condition surely lead to humility. As King David said in Psalms 144, O God, what is man that you should care about him? And also it is stated in Job, chapter 14, man born of woman. And also Psalms 22 verse 7, but I am like a worm, not a man. And also Job chapter 25, how much less man, a maggot, the son of man, a worm. The second method of acquiring humility is as follows. When a person considers the severity of the various trials that he is subject to in this world, hunger and thirst, cold and heat, disease, misfortune and anxiety, from which he has no release except in death, when a perceptive individual takes all this to heart and understands his own weakness, and that he has neither the intelligence nor power to protect himself from the afflictions, he will grasp the true nature of his condition, that in the world he is not merely like a prisoner, but he actually is a prisoner. He will then assume the humility of a prisoner in a dark cell, who has no device or power to free himself without his master's will. As it says in Psalms chapter 79, may the cry of the prisoner come before you. And also from Psalms chapter 142, take me out of prison. Number 3, the third way that a person acquires humility. When a person considers the transient character of his existence, how swiftly death comes, how at that time his aspirations and hopes are cut off, and he must leave all behind with his possessions, with no chance of taking any of them with him as provisions or for support. If he imagines his position in the grave, his face without radiance and his complexion darkened, how he will become wormy, decayed and putrid, the marks of his physical beauty gone, his corpse emitting an increasingly foul odour, as if he had never been washed or cleansed or had a pleasant fragrance. With these and similar thoughts enter his mind, he will feel humbled and bowed. He will not become proud or arrogant, haughty or self-important. As it says in Yeshayahu chapter 2, forget about man, whose breath is in his nostrils, for of what account is he? And also from Psalms chapter 62, human beings are mere breath, mortal men but an illusion. Put them all on the scale, together they weigh less than a breath. The fourth way of acquiring humility is as follows. When a person reflects on the service he owes God for the abundant kindness and great goodness he has bestowed upon him, when he recalls his neglect and inadequate fulfillment of the commandments, those called for by the intellect and those whose origin is in revelation alone, when he considers that he will have no arguments or excuses when the day of reckoning comes, and will be full of remorse at the time of retribution, he will be humbled and his spirit will be broken. As it says in Kings chapter 3 verse 19, for behold, the day is coming, burning like an oven, when all the arrogant and all the evildoers will be straw. But who can endure the day of his coming? The fifth way of the way one acquires humility is by contemplating the grandeur and mighty power of the Creator, may He be exalted, who observes one's outer appearances and inner experiences. One can attain an appreciation of this awesome force by considering the following. Our masters of blessed memory have spoken of the awe-inspiring and imposing presence of many of the pious ones who lived in past generations. They said of one, for instance, he, Rabbi Sheshes, fixed his gaze upon one person, who then became a heap of bones. This is from Brachot, chapter 58a. Of Yonasan ben Uziel they said, when he was expounding the Torah, any bird that flew above him was instantly burned. This is from Sukkah 28a. Now, the prophets were undoubtedly on a higher level than the pious. Yet you will find that when they encountered angels, the prophets' powers melted, and they bent their knees and prostrated themselves, as it says of Daniel, Yoshua, and many others like them. You will find, however, in the books of the prophets that the angels bend their knees and prostrate themselves before the Creator, and may He be exalted. As it says in Nehemiah, chapter 9, verse 6, the hosts of heaven prostrate themselves before you. And also from Job, chapter 4, He does not trust His servants or attribute glory to His angels. Also from Psalms 29, in His heavenly palace all say glory. And finally from Yeshayahu, chapter 6, verse 3, one who would call out to the other and say, Holy, holy, holy is the God of hosts. The whole earth is full of His glory. Actually, what is manifest to our minds from His creation, such as the sun and the moon and the stars, and the celestial sphere, the earth and all that is on it, inanimate objects, plants and animals, is sufficient for one endowed with understanding and intelligence to attain an appreciation of God's majesty. As it says in Psalms 92, how great are your works, God, how exceedingly deep your designs. An ignorant man will not know, a fool will not understand. Also from Yeshayahu, all the nations are as nothing before Him. And finally from Daniel chapter 4, all the inhabitants of the earth are as nothing. And when the wise and the discerning individual thinks of himself in comparison with all of mankind, and of all mankind in comparison with the earth's sphere, and of this sphere as compared to the lunar sphere, and of that sphere in comparison with the all-encompassing sphere, and realizing that the whole universe in comparison with the greatness of the Creator is as nothing, he will be humbled in his very soul and lowly before his Creator. As it says in Psalms 8 verse 5, what is man that you should be mindful of him, or the son of man that you should notice him? The sixth way of acquiring humility is by reading the books of the prophets, noting the severe punishment inflicted on the proud and haughty, and conversely God's great providence over the humble and lowly, as it says of pride and haughtiness. And he quotes from Yeshayahu chapter 2, the prideful eyes of man will be lowered, and the haughtiness of men will be brought low, and God alone will be exalted on that day. For God of hosts has a day against all that are arrogant and high, against all who are lifted up, and they will be brought low. Of both groups it says, and it quotes Tehillim chapter 147, God strengthens the humble, He brings the wicked down to the ground. And also from Psalms 138, for God is exalted, yet sees the lowly, and from afar He afflicts the haughty. And of the lowly it says, also from Psalms, but the humble will inherit the land, because God has anointed me to bring good tidings to the humble. That's from Yeshayahu. And quotes also from Yeshayahu chapter 57, for thus said the high and exalted one, who lives forever and whose name is holy, I dwell on high and in holiness, also with the broken and lowly in spirit. And also Proverbs chapter 16, before disaster there is arrogance. And also from Proverbs chapter 18, before disaster a man's heart is haughty. The seventh way of acquiring humility is as follows. When one observes the upheavals in the conditions of people in the world, how swiftly kingdoms and governments disappear, how people are moved from one predicament to another, one nation is destroyed for the benefit of another, and the end of all is death, as it says in Psalms 49. Like sheep they are herded to the grave. He is humbled and will not pride himself on any worldly wealth, or trust in his heart or any worldly thing, as it is written in Psalms chapter 40, "Blessed is the man who made God his trust and did not turn to the arrogant or those that stray after falsehood." When a person's thoughts are never free of one of these 7 points we have mentioned, he will be humble and lowly at all times, until humility becomes second nature to him and inseparable from him. When he adheres to humility, it keeps him far from all the pitfalls of arrogance, haughtiness, pride, and as we have noted previously, he will be saved by it from sin and stumbling, as it says in Shemot, chapter 20, verse 17, so that his fear be on your faces and you not sin. Our sages of blessed memory have said, "Reflect on 3 things and you will not come to sin. Know from where you came, where you are going, and before whom you will give accounting and reckoning. From where did you come? From a putrid drop. Where are you going? To a place of dust, maggots and worms. Before whom will you give an accounting and reckoning? Before the kings of kings, the Holy One, blessed be He." And that's from Pirkei Avos chapter 3, verse 1. So very interesting. Well, there's something to note there, just a minor point, is that in every indication of where a human being is broken and lowly in spirit, it seems that God instantly dwells with them. It says it from various sources in Scripture. It's obvious that when we are at our lowest points, we shouldn't feel that God has deserted us, but that's when God is with us. From all of these quotations, this is important to understand, that this is a state that He is most present with you, and this is obviously it's the very opposite of arrogance, where He departs from you. So one thing to take to heart is that at your lowest point, when you are broken and your spirit is low, know that God is there in abundance, and just trust in Him, as we've learned in previous gates. So in the next episode, chapter 6, we're going to learn the 10 rules of conduct that a master of humility should observe. So I look forward to that episode.